100 years of Disney, so the movie opens with. 100 years to reach this point at its worst moment. A soulless political and hateful corporation has replaced the magical, inspiring, and groundbreaking company it once was. It's sad to see, and judging by the audience attendances to this film, Indiana Jones and The Little Mermaid, everyone has had simply enough of this crooked corporation. And good. I would be happy to see it crumble, or at the very least, see everyone in charge be replaced. Maybe then can it become what it once was in my childhood. Sadder still is this, and even Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny are good films, hampered by what you can only think to believe is studio intrusion, woke messaging, and a complete disregard for its audience. Elemental is a really good film. If you can stomach the first 30 minutes of propaganda, it essentially becomes Romeo and Juliet without the ritual self-deaths, and it's wonderfully romantic and touching. It's the best thing Pixar have done since Toy Story 3, and again it just has 30 minutes of utter manipulation and confused messaging, which is extremely off-putting, to be honest. Essentially though, the plot is that Ember's family, who are fire people, immigrate to Element City, home of water, earth and air people. They set up a business, and Ember, their daughter, is living her life to one day take over the family business from her overbearing father. Ember is hot-headed in every sense and loses her temper often. Eventually, this causes her to blow a water leak in the shop's basement. Doing so, Wade, the other protagonist of the movie, a water elemental, flows out of the burst pipe. He is a city inspector and deems that Ember's father's shop is a mess of regulation breaches and heads off to report the shop, saying to Ember that they will surely be shut down. Ember chases after Wade to stop him, fails, but then strikes a deal with his boss, who says if they can find and stop the source of a certain problematic water leak, then she will remove all the charges. This last bit isn't that important, as from here we get a brilliant romance between Wade and Ember, which is extremely moving, well acted, and deeply emotional. Now, I won't go too far further into the plot from here, and I haven't spoiled anything, don't worry, but that sounds reasonable, right? Sounds like a middle-of-the-road plot that brings two people together from different backgrounds in a nice romantic way. It does. But what I didn't tell you is how the first 30 minutes actually go. Ember's parents arrive not speaking the language. They speak Fire-ish, which is weirdly Arabic and Asian, and they are automatically shunned by the people of Element City. Now, be very aware that there are water people and earth people living here. The earth people are basically trees, so both can be killed by fire. Killed. This isn't racism if the people you don't want to get close to you will kill you. In any event, the movie presents it like it's some form of intolerance. Also, just to add to that, fire people, they eat wood. So they literally eat the earth people. Wouldn't you have a problem with them? This is what I mean by this movie. It's propaganda for pro-immigration and is very anti-native and anti-nationalist. But it doesn't make sense because it actually comes across as more racist and xenophobic in the reverse. Oh, and the air people, just forget about them. Disney can't get that one to work for the agenda. So anyway, Ember's dad, he sets up this shop, building it up himself from nothing. Great, good for him. More fire people then seem to immigrate, and then they have their own fire people community, which looks like a shanty town compared to the modern big city. So the fire people, Ember in this instance, claims at one point that Element City wasn't made with fire people in mind. Okay, well why should it? If you move to their city, why don't you just try to integrate and adapt? They didn't build the city on purpose to keep fire people out. It's just how their culture or city developed. So there's a clear divide already, but apparently it's supposed to be the people who lived there originally that caused the divide. But why does the fire city look so backwards? Is this their culture's representation showing its limitations? Or is this just the systemic racism of Element City holding them down? Disney wants it to be the latter, but we get no evidence to show that there is any real prejudice towards the fire people other than fire can kill two of the populations of the city. So can the water people, to be fair to the fire people, which seems to be the main element they only really care about, and who Ember's father hates with what can only be said is an almost racist passion. Yes, the father who immigrates, who is supposed to side with along with the fire people against the privileged other elements, is the one who clearly states and pushes that water and fire don't mix and they never should. Are you confused yet with the messaging? Also, when Wade appears and finds all the regulations and issues with the shop to report it, it made me think, well, maybe if the fire people integrated and abided by the city's rules, then there wouldn't have been any issues with the building. It seems to want to push the idea that, this poor guy built it himself and now he's having it stolen away by the mean, privileged elements. But again, it just doesn't really come across like that, despite its attempts to manipulate you. So this propaganda push, as I've said, lasts for about 30 minutes. And then once we finally get to the highly emotional but good-hearted Wade and the temperamental but plucky Ember together, we get some magical scenes. The voice actors are superb for both Wade and Ember, and you will get sucked into their romance. Fire and water shouldn't mix, they can't touch, they don't belong, etc. It's all there in front of you, and without the first 30 minutes of preaching, you would just simply see this, as I've said, just as a logical thing about elements being opposing, and not a political, racial or cultural issue. It would be Romeo and Juliet. So if you can switch your brain off for half an hour, and then aim for focusing on this movie being a Shakespearean romance, you'll love it. There are some other weird lines and issues in this as well that I just want to bring up. One being the fact Ember is upset that as a kid she could never see this special flower that can survive in all elements at an exhibit. Her and her father being told that no fire people are allowed in, which makes absolutely no sense. And where in the Western world does this actually still happen? People are free to go to anything regardless of race, gender or culture. It's ham-fisted nonsense to try and make you believe that the water people, yes, it really hates them primarily, are a bunch of xenophobes and racists. No prizes for guessing what race or culture the water people might be. Also, when Ember meets Wade's extremely nice, non-biased and caring family who welcome Ember instantly without prejudice or fear, unlike her own parents who are supposed to be the poor immigrants we should side with, the uncle randomly says it's amazing how well Ember talks and how clear she is. It's again clumsy and unwarranted manipulation. Ember replies, "It's amazing how well you talk when you speak the same language all your life." Again, this movie is so confused. It feels like there was a genuine romance movie in here, untarnished by Disney. And then they came in and added lots of weird elements, no pun intended, to this to keep their agenda game going. Once more, get past this stuff and it gets really good. It's a simple romance, but it's a meaningful one. And it has a really emotional ending with some of the most heartfelt lines I've seen in the film for many, many years. It touches on bringing that old Disney romance back to the screen. Visually, it's stunning. It's so vibrant and beautiful you cannot but commend Pixar's animators and artists for this film. Musically, nothing stood out, which probably meant it did its bit, adding when necessary to stoke the emotional points of the film. Pixar aren't talentless, and there are some funny moments, some really creative moments, beautiful moments, and emotional moments. But it is moments, which perhaps is the problem considering they created some of the best animated films of all time. It's a high bar to try and reach again. Sadly, as noted, Disney tried to ruin the film, but thankfully, the allegories in the film don't work. The preaching is illogical and forced, and the agenda, thankfully, fails. Survive the first 30 minutes, or just start the movie from the point that she chases Wade to stop him from reporting the shop to the authorities, and you'll have a great time. Audience scores and Rotten Tomatoes remain high for this film, despite critic hate, so there must be something to this film, even if you don't quite trust me. I always recommend, though, that people see movies themselves and make their own minds up. For me, this was a really great romance movie, and it's worth a watch when it is available for streaming. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts if you've seen the movie, your concerns if you're hesitant to go, and what your thoughts are about the state of Disney. And with that, I'll end the video. Thanks very much. See you soon.